police officer down outside Atlanta, Georgia. I was not a bike officer there. I've been part of our, what we call the Bees. It was a name given to us by the street people because when we would swoop down on them, they'd yell out, we looked like a bunch of bumblebees. So we kind of ran with that and turned it into Bicycle Emphasis Enforcement Squad. So it's kind of a created acronym for us. But I've been doing that for over 6 years now. Now in our squad, we don't measure our time in this squad by years, we do it by winters. So I've been through 7 winters. I've survived 7 winters. Doing it full time, we ride all year. We do not take breaks. The only time we will take a break is if we are faced with dangerous conditions, a la ice, excessive rain, visibility limited, that kind of thing. So we ride all year and we ride in every condition. So I've never done this before, so I've got some talking points that I wanted to cover with everybody, and then I figured I could take questions. And if I can't answer the question up here today, hopefully I can find the answer for you and get it for you later. One of the most common questions I get asked by people out on the street is a bike a vehicle? Well, the most common one is, where's the Pike's Place Market? But in the state of Washington, a bicycle is a vehicle. Okay, so if you're riding in the roadway, you are expected to follow the rules of the road, just like people in a car or a truck or whatever other vehicle that's on the roadway. You can ride on the sidewalk. That is legal. That's one of the common things when we get stopped by people who are upset with us is, why are you riding on the sidewalk? Well, I'm riding on the sidewalk because it's legal and I'm yielding to pedestrians. So I have every right to do so, not just because it says sheriff on my back. So be aware of that. You can ride on the sidewalk and situationally. I would probably recommend that you ride in the roadway if you're following the rules of the road. But it is legal to do so. Another kind of myth, just as an FYI, our printer was broken for my talking points, so I'm using this. I'm not checking email or anything. I'm not texting, I promise. So you can use the crosswalks. Another kind of myth is that I see people, they see us and they kind of roll their eyes and they get off their bike and they walk their bike across the crosswalk. Now I know some of the bike clubs recommend that. I did read that online. I think specifically Cascade recommends that. You can ride your bike across the crosswalk. It's fine. Just remember, if you're behaving like a pedestrian, behave like a pedestrian. If you're going to be riding in the roadway, you have to behave like a vehicle. Okay? So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the strategies to stay safe, because you know, you are on a bicycle, other people are in cars and trucks. We have a rule in the world of bike. I guess technically I'm a professional bike rider. In the event of a collision, he or she with the most lug nuts wins, right? Now you're out there on a bike, you ain't got lug nuts, so we want to be safe. We want to figure out strategies to ride that allow us to safely do this, hopefully on a regular basis. Okay, so I figure one of the first things I talk about is the different types of bikes, and maybe talk about a little bit of strategy or an idea. First off, before I get to that, do I have any who are avid riders now, active riders, commuters? Okay, it's quite a few. Okay. 3 different types of bikes. There's the road bike, which is the kind you would see. I'm not a recreational cyclist, to be honest with you. I do it for a living. I do some recreational cycling, but I'm not an avid recreational cyclist. So a road bike, which would be like what you'd see in the Tour de France at a highly elevated quality level. It's very skinny tires. The advantage of that is it's very efficient. You're pedaling. You know, you don't have to burn as much energy to make that thing roll. The downside, and the reason we have reasons we ride the types of bikes we do, for me, my opinion, the downside is the skinny tires and some of the hazards that exist on the streets of Seattle and everywhere. It's not just the streets of Seattle, but given that Seattle's a bit of an old city, some of the hazards and, you know, the defunct railroad tracks that are still in the roadways, that kind of thing. And your chances for, or even just excessive grooving in the road, your chances for getting your wheel caught in that groove are elevated with that kind of a tire versus some of the other types. The type we ride is a mountain bike. Now the reason we do that is because we're going up curbs, upstairs, downstairs. We are hard on these bikes. We've broken 3 frames at least. probably more like 5, but I know for sure of 3 that we have snapped frames in half.
Lifetime guaranteed frame.
Lifetime guaranteed frames that they replaced. Well, not anymore. They said
they're getting irritated with
you're cut off. Yeah, Specialized had enough of us. So the problem is we've had some big guys in the unit, and the weight load is a little excessive. And I don't mean big, I mean big. So we ride these because of the durability. We ride these for the physical demands that we place on them. One of the things that I like about the bikes that we ride above and beyond the disc brakes and full suspension is the fatter tires. I feel, this is anecdotal, I don't have any statistics to back this up, I feel safer on the fatter tires in the urban environment than I would in the skinnier tires. I would love to have a road bike and ride around the beautiful country roads out in the county, but that's not what my job is, that's not what I do. Downside is it is a less efficient pedaling system. The gearing is far less efficient than you're going to get in a road bike. A different type of bike, kind of halfway between, is I've heard it called a hybrid, I've heard it called a fitness bike. It's got the frame and the handlebars like a mountain bike, but it's got a skinnier tire and a different gearing system. It's more of like, it's like halfway between a road bike and a mountain bike. If you're commuting, everybody has different ways that they do it. I'm not a bike commuter. I like the position that this puts me in. I find this position to be more practical as opposed to all the way over on my handlebars or like you'd see on a road bike. So those are some considerations for you. If you're not yet an avid bicycle commuter and you're looking to you're considering doing this, those are some different considerations for you if you have not yet selected a bike. So after you've selected a bike, one of the things that you need to be aware of is that in the county of King, these are a legal requirement, okay? And it's a hefty $30 ticket, I believe, if you do not have one.
You can have 2 helmets for that price.
And there are helmets, so that's right. And you can get 2 helmets for that price, so wear your helmet. I read a statistics, I can't quote the source, but it said that 80% of bike vehicle fatalities are cranial. They're head injuries. Wear your helmet, for God's sake. All right, get to work, fix your hair. You know, there's a reason I have this hairstyle. So these are a legal requirement. Now, Cascade's here, and she's certainly going to help you if you do not yet have one. But if you already have one and you maybe need to get going, I'll talk a little bit about fitting this. The bike helmet should sit squarely on your head. Okay, it should not be back. We don't need it forward. We don't, make sure it's facing forward, by the way. I don't want to see this, okay? Don't want to see it. I'll have an adjuster in the back that'll tighten and loosen. This will be a very common feature, I think, correct? In pretty much every helmet that's out there that I've seen. Roll it one way for tighter, roll it the other way for looser. So if it's sitting squarely on your head, you'll have these things that'll drop down. They should come down just below your ears, okay, for fit. And when I want to see about 2 fingers of play right here, okay? Because if it's too tight, you're going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to, and if you get uncomfortable, you don't like what's human nature, you're not going to wear it, right? But if it's too loose and its weight's just hanging down here, we unfortunately have seen people in impact who got knocked out of their shoes. Do you think that thing's going to stay on your head if you're actually hit by a car? Okay, so don't have it so loose. Like I said, 2 fingers, rule of 2 fingers, underneath between your chin and that strap. That should give you enough comfort. But still keep it secure enough where it will stay on your head in the case of an accident, unfortunately. Legal requirement, okay? County of King, legal. Now here in our unit, with some other required equipment above and beyond a mountain bike in good working order and a helmet, we require eye protection. This makes me nuts when I see people riding. I totally understand, but it makes me crazy when I see people riding, commuting recreationally without eye protection. Over my 7 winters of doing this, I can promise you I've been hit in the face with rocks coming up from vehicles. In the face. Okay, now in the eyewear. Okay, so these are impact resistant. There's an acronym for that. There's a standard governing body that rates that type of stuff. So get an impact-resistant eyewear, eye protection, and wear it.
What about glasses?
Probably not impact-resistant.
No, but
Yeah.
how do you necessarily fit things over?
Yeah, I wear contacts, so I got lucky that way, I
Yeah.
guess.
Special kind?
Yeah, you go to your optometrist. I've seen them at my optometrist. So,
Okay.
you know, your eyes,
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah.
We require it, but it's not a legal requirement. We recommend gloves, just for hand protection, grip, warmth, comfort, etc. There's some really good ones. We buy most of our equipment at Greg's Cycles. I'm not a paid endorser for Greg's at Green Lake, but that's where we go for our stuff. If you're looking for a source, they seem to be about as good as any. Kind of a fun thing here, not a requirement. This is strictly for comfort. These are called, I've heard them called climates, and I've heard them called hippo hands. I don't know why that is. We get our equipment at a company called Bratware in Fife. I believe they sell to the public. So you can go down there and get this stuff too. They're also the people who make our uniforms, etc. They're not warmers. They do not keep your hands warm, but what they do is they keep the wind and the rain off your hands. Wet hands is misery. Everybody who's been outdoorsy or whatever, you'll know that. Second legal requirement, headlight. Okay, our headlights, what we teach at our bike class, is 42 lumens at 10 feet. I don't know what that means. Get a good quality headlight. Okay, they'll just go to a reputable bike shop. Let them know what you want. They know what they're doing. They'll set you up with something good. This one has about 4 different light brightness settings. And then it goes to a strobe, I believe, which I don't personally use just because I'm a patrol cop. I don't need that sort of thing. And there we go. So that is a requirement. What that's getting us...
That's only a requirement at night though, right?
Yes,
Right
yes, at night. Yes, you got to have a headlight at night.
I would say in gray conditions also.
Well, this is Seattle.
This,
Yeah, mist, gray, rain. Why not? Does it cost you really anything other than if it's battery charged, other than changing out your batteries? Why not just have it on and be safe?
you're already
Why not?
invisible to most drivers
Right.
because they're not expecting you, so do everything you can to be visible all the time.
Right. So, which leads me to my next kind of thing. So that's some of the equipment, okay, that we use. Legal requirements, recommended, highly recommended. Please protect your eyes. Would be what we call vehicular cycling, how to ride like a car, okay? One of the first things, she just said, be visible, okay? And there's some different ways you can be visible. One of that would be reflective clothing that you'd find a lot of in the bike stores. Because remember now, we're talking about commuting, right? This is not the recreational country ride, but even then, be visible. But, I mean, we're in a dense environment where people are not paying attention. This is not anything you guys don't know. Nobody's paying attention anymore, right? Everybody's got their heads down. Texting's illegal, right? Okay. For who? You know, and the last thing you need is being somewhere where they're not expecting you because they're not paying attention anyway. So be visible. Reflective clothing is a really good idea. Lights would be another way to be visible. Headlight, flashing taillight. I am a big fan of the flashing taillight because the most dangerous, statistically I guess, vehicle, bike accident is an overtaking. An overtaking accident. Okay, so be visible. If it's just a red light and they're not paying attention, maybe they don't see it. But maybe if that thing's flashing and strobing, oh, I see, bright shiny object, squirrel. Okay, maybe they'll, right? So maybe they'll have a chance to see you. It doesn't cost you. It costs you a little bit, but it's worth it. Be visible. Be as visible as you can. One of the other ways to be visible would be to create what we call a signature. Okay, which says, "Hey, spaced out dude, got a bike over here." Okay, so that could be active lighting, that could be passive lighting, but one of the things that I would recommend for a commuter would be to place some sort of reflective or active lighting on one or both of your legs, down by your ankles. Okay, because if you put active lighting just like on your back or on the back of your seat, that's just there, and it's constant, and it's doing this. But the brain registers when it sees lights or reflections doing this. Oh, there's something unusual there. Okay, maybe their lizard brain will register it and not hit you. So that's a good strategy. But for what we do, we don't wear them. But if I were to be a commuter, I would wear one. Some sort of reflective something around my ankle. So the other thing would be predictable. So what that means is if I'm in a car and I'm expecting other people in cars to act like cars, then I'm expecting other vehicles on the roadway to also act like cars. So that's what we talk about vehicular cycling. Act like a car. Now, to that, understand that a lot of people get pretty cranky with bicyclists, right? And I think sometimes that's a two-way street. I think I've seen personally, as a professional biker, a lot of bicyclists who, they're not necessarily sharing the road in a gracious manner. And I think then you get a lot of motorists who just think, you stupid bike, and I'm a car, and get off the road, and I do what I want. So, a couple of strategies I would like to bring up there would be, you need to ride as far right as practicable in the lane as you can. Okay, but there will be times, and there should be times, when you need to take the lane, and you have a legal right to do so. You are a vehicle, okay? Understanding with the caveat that you're going to be making people grumpy as you're rolling down the road at 12 miles an hour, and they're trying to go get their kids, right, from daycare. So, but you also need to be safe, so ride as far right as you can in the lane that is going in the direction that you need to travel, okay? Now, if you're in a two-lane road, or a two-lane in one-way road, and you need to turn left, yes, you're going to need to get as far right as you can in the left lane so you can make your left-hand turn safely. You're not going to be making your left-hand turn from the right lane. Does that make sense? Act like a car. Get in the appropriate lane as if you were a car, but ride as far right in that lane as you practically can. Okay?
Why is that?
What's that?
Why? What is the reason for going as far as you can to the right?
Because we pass on the left in this country.
And
Right.
so some cars might like not completely go into the other lane. They may shave a part of the
You
lane
bet.
the bike is in. And
Yeah. You bet.
That's not legal, right?
Correct.
Right.
Okay? I've had people, Sheriff, who have all but run me off the road, going up like 24th Avenue up Capitol Hill. They're just making a point. I promise you they'll do it to you too, okay? I'm sorry, but so the way to combat that is by being safe and riding as predictably as you can. Now, one of the other strategies I like to talk about there would be when you come up, because this upsets people in cars, if you're acting like a car and you come up to a red light, if you were in a car, would you go around them onto the shoulder so that you can get up to the front of the line? Would you do that in a car? No, you would not do that in a car. I hope not anyway. Okay? Don't do it in a bike unless there's a dedicated bike lane. Okay? If you've got a bike lane, that's fine, because all these cars have spent however long, hopefully not too long, but trying to get around you, hopefully in a safe manner. And then what you've done at the red light is you've gone back up and now you've made them have to do it again. Okay? And that upsets motorists. Okay? So at that point, if I'm like the sixth vehicle at the red light, stay 6 vehicles back. Don't make them have to overtake you. Again, with a caveat, unless you have a dedicated bike lane, which we're getting more and more of, fortunately, in Seattle. In which case, that's your lane. But you are not required legally to ride in that lane. You can ride in the lane of travel, okay? So that's just kind of a little stop strategy. It will help keep you safe as well, because that's that many fewer cars that are trying to get around you. So the other thing would be to be alert. That seems commonsensical to me. And communicate. Let people know. You are required to provide hand signals, all the old school hand signals, okay? Let people know what you're doing. Some guys in our unit like to just, I'm going right, so they'll just pick but that's my rear brake, and I don't like only having front brake available to me. Everybody understand why? So I do it the old school way myself. But communicate with people. If you're visible, if you're predictable, and you're communicating with people, that's going to optimize your chances for a safe, everyday journey. Make sense? So the last thing I want to talk about for you guys to present to you would be the types of hazards that are out there for you, okay? Things to be aware of. The first one would be surface hazard. Give me some examples of a surface hazard, anybody?
Gravel.
Glass, puddles. Don't ride into puddles. You don't know how deep those things are, okay?
Potholes.
Potholes, right, okay?
Storm drains.
Storm drains, absolutely. Train tracks in Seattle, decommissioned train tracks that are angling at like a crazy angle on the road. Leaves, with all the moisture that we have in Seattle, leaves get extremely slippery. Gravel, loose roadways, okay? The other type would be visual. Can you give me an example of some visual?
Parked cars inside that might open up.
Absolutely, yeah. Bright sunshine for at least 2 weeks a year, right? Thick fog, driving rain, things that are going to impair your ability to see and be seen, okay? And the last one would be moving. Some examples of moving obstacles.
Buses.
What's that?
Buses?
Buses, sure, anything that's moving. That was the easy one, right? Cars, trucks, dogs, kids, strollers, pedestrians that are paying no attention to what they're doing. Okay, you see the YouTube videos of people walking into fountains and bouncing off buildings because they're just so preoccupied these days. So anything that's moving, so be aware of those. Okay? And that is about all I have for you. So I would like to take questions if there are any questions in the back.
Can you talk a little bit about the safety of the green boxes? And there's some controversy over whether or not they're more safe than putting you in front of the traffic than not.
Yeah.
What's your experience with that?
My experience with it kind of goes back to what I talked about, going onto the shoulder, up around people. Now I understand it's a green box and it's dedicated, and they're usually almost always preceded by a dedicated bike lane. I don't get them, and I just don't understand, other than raising visual awareness, hey, there's bikes here, so heads up. I don't use them.
Cascade.
Yeah, if you have,
If I can
Sure.
offer something. So some examples I've seen of the green boxes when they're connected to a bike lane, it's usually coming up on the right side. And as far as I know, it's there to prevent cars from just taking a right turn and ignoring the fact that there are cyclists moving
yeah.
to their right. So it puts all the cyclists in front, and if they need to take a right turn, that's fine. But it means that the cars that are behind them don't have to worry about just turning into a cyclist, just they're taking a right.
Yeah, I don't use them. I'm not going to go up and get in front of the, generally speaking, or up in front of the line of cars that I just work my way around. To me, that's just road courtesy. But it's a visual cue. I mean, if they're seeing the green and that's making them think, look for cyclists,
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
A good example I was just mentioning is the Fremont.
Yes,
Yeah. Thinking
on 34th
You
going,
have to take the sidewalk first, and then
yeah,
there's a green light, because you have to go straight, or cars turning
yeah.
right. So
One of our common, we do intermittent fitness rides and things, and one of our common rides brings us across North 34th, right there to Fremont when we come south over the bridge. And yeah, that's one of the primaries that visually that I'm thinking in my imagination. It's precisely the area I was thinking of. Yeah.
Is the helmet requirement only a legal necessity if you're on a street or road as opposed to off-road or a sidewalk or something?
I don't know that answer.
Yeah.
All public rights of way.
Public rights, so thank you. Yeah.
All ages, all hours, all public rights of way, streets, sidewalks, and trails. And I said those three things because helmet laws vary from locality to locality and from state to state. And in King County, it's everybody, everywhere, all the time.
There's no time when I don't wear it, even recreationally. My kids, I make them wear it. It's just wear it. Yes.
If it seemed more practical to go opposite the traffic, are you allowed to do that on the road and on a sidewalk?
On a sidewalk, you can walk any direction on the sidewalk, right?
But not on the road?
But not on the
ever?
roadway. Two
Even
things
if you're
about that.
crossing over to go to a street that's close by and it would be dangerous, more dangerous,
You wouldn't do it in a car. You wouldn't turn into the oncoming, I mean, maybe you would, but you think you're not gonna get caught. But legally, no. Now, there's a couple things for that. Number one, it's just rules of the road. But one thing also to think about for yourself is that, what if there's somebody who's coming out and turning right into you? They're not expecting oncoming traffic, okay? That's not their visual scanning pattern. That's not what they're looking for. And one of the prime examples I have of something like that would be 4th Avenue South, Main Street coming westbound at 4th Avenue South Main Street. There used to be a skillet there, and if we ride on our bicycles on the east side of the sidewalk, we're going southbound down 4th Avenue towards the stadiums. Coming down Main Street, 4th Avenue is northbound only right there, and they are only looking left. They are not looking right, ever. It's the most dangerous intersection for us in our daily you better get on, hey, eye contact. I am here. Do you see me? I am crossing. I am a pedestrian. I'm acting as a pedestrian here. I'm on the sidewalk. And you have to, because that's their scanning pattern. They're looking for cars. They're not thinking of pedestrians or cyclists. So, be safe. Yeah.
But if you can see them and you stop, instead of expecting them to stop, it depends on you trust the other driver or the other people or not. If I'm walking, I would rather walk against the traffic instead of walk,
I'm not
follow
going to
the
bet my
traffic.
life on that. I'm not going to bet my life on trusting motorists. I'm just not going to do it.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to, okay.
Not only that, but it puts other cyclists who are following the rules of the road.
Right.
If they're going the correct way, you're putting them in danger because then
Yes.
they're gonna have, somebody's gonna have to suddenly go out into traffic.
And if you think about it, kind of we're all if we're commuting, or in my case, pretty darn visible here in my Bumblebee uniform, kind of ambassadors for this, to a certain extent, right? And I forget something statistic like in sales, a customer has a bad experience, they're going to tell 7 people, and if they have a good one, they're going to tell 1. Okay? We're just wired that way. And if I see one cyclist acting like an idiot, they're all idiots. Right? So if you're going to ride your bike and you're going to do this daily, be a good ambassador. Do it properly. Do it safely. Yeah.
Can you talk more about kind of juxtaposition versus the furthest right thing in the vehicular riding? Because I found new cyclists when I go out, their idea of that is, let's say you go down Fifth and there's parked cars occasionally. They'll weave in to where there's no car further to the right, and they'll pop back out, which makes it harder for the cars to actually know what you're doing. You wouldn't do that if you were driving.
Yeah.
Yes, you get out of the way of the cars, but it's actually more dangerous.
Yes. It's being
And if there's
unpredictable.
parked cars, you're almost in the center lane if you're not going to get doored. And I find that if I get really close to the door, people will, there's like this philosophy about painted lines, like I have to stay in the line, and
Right.
they'll smush me against it instead of
Yes.
actually going out. Because downtown we have a lot of one-way streets, there are other lanes, it's not like there's no other option.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes. You are correct. And I spoke with Scott. The most dangerous bike lane in the city of Seattle is 2nd Avenue South. It is insane. Oh my God, we don't ride in it. I mean, we will, but I mean, if we can get out of it, we will. Like if we're group riding or if there's a couple of us, let's get over. Because it's nuts. The car doors opening, the trucks, the delivery vehicles that are parking there, the left turners who are all trying to get up to I-5. It's a dangerous lane. So be predictable, but as far right as is practicable, okay? And one of the things, as is practical to do so. If it's not practical to ride all the way over right, like on 5th Avenue like you're talking about, because there's cars, doors swinging open, you don't want to get doored, of course not. Take the lane then. There's all kinds of lanes, take the lane. You have a legal right to do so. Just understanding that, you want to, as a general rule, you want to be that good ambassador and be a courteous rider, but if you need to take the lane for your safety, you take the lane. Plain and simple. Does that make sense? Yeah. And those guys who are weaving in and out and acting all crazy, like all the single gear, skinny jeans messengers, what are you going to do,
Well, I'm not mentioning that with being in cars, but I have a lot of people start riding, and their biggest concern is being away from the car, and so they actually weave to where there isn't parked cars, and then when there is a parked car, they go back into the lane, and they go back in and out, and every time they go back out, that's
Yes.
a potential area that cars aren't expecting them to be.
Okay.
And so they feel that it's safer, but it's not safer.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely maintain your direction of travel. Be predictable. What they're doing is I'm visually able to see what you're talking about. I wasn't before. I apologize. They're in the road of traffic, then they're getting right because they want to get away from the traffic. But that's where parked cars are. Oh, there's more parked cars. I better get it back into my lane. That is not predictable cycling, and that's going to get them hurt eventually. Just law of averages. Okay. Stay in your lane that's going the direction that you want to go to, and just stay in that lane. Okay? I would myself stay as far right in that lane as is practicable. Understanding I'm looking for doors, I'm looking for people who aren't paying attention, they're throwing this open. I'm looking for the delivery truck that's taking half that lane anyway. Okay? And if you need to be alert, it's incumbent on you to stay alive and be alert, right? And if you see 200 yards up, there's a truck that's taking half your lane, anticipate it. Make sure your lane is clear, check back, just go ahead and give a little hand signal, check back again, and then move on over to maybe the middle of the lane. Maybe you're all the way over in the left part of the lane, because that's what you need to do, as far right as is practicable. Yeah.
You talked earlier about riding on sidewalks
Mhm.
conditionally. So for me, one of those conditions is if I'm a little freaked out
Mhm.
by what's going on the road, sometimes I'll spend a couple of blocks on the sidewalk.
Sure.
I do that northbound on 4th Avenue in front of the couple of hotels where the taxis are weaving in and out
Yeah.
and the
Like the Alexis or
valets
whatever
are
right through there.
opening doors
Yeah.
and there is a Sharrow lane there, but
Yep.
I move over to the sidewalk for 2 blocks and then
Totally legal.
I come back and I aware of the pedestrians and then I come back and be a vehicle.
Yeah, the pedestrians on the sidewalk, they have the right of way, not you. So it is incumbent on you to understand that if you're going to ride on the sidewalk. Yeah.
One more thing that I think is important to know about riding on the sidewalk is that in the interest of being predictable, drivers don't expect you to be on the sidewalk, and so statistically it is one of the more dangerous places to ride because drivers expect you to be acting like a vehicle in the road, and they are expecting you to race out from like a beveled edge on the sidewalk. So just keep that in mind and just try to be extra cautious when you're on the sidewalk.
That's a fair point.
It is a fair point. Though, in the last couple of years or so, riding a motorcycle as well as bicycles, I've seen in people in cars, and lots of people are texting. And I just become more and more scared to ride a bicycle on the
Right.
street.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse. It's not getting better. Right? We're getting more and more distracted. That's a different problem. Probably a different lunch and learn. Yeah.
So, as you said, the area is getting more and more bike friendly and bike lanes with a picture of a bike
Yeah.
going right on it to tell you what it is. And then where that lane ends, I've seen the bike icon with inverted chevrons above it on the road, the lane of travel.
Yeah.
If it's understood that bikes are sharing all lanes at all times legally, why is that extra icon on there? Why is that extra painted?
Because it's not hurting anything.
It's
And if
just
it's
a
raising,
reminder.
if it's raising awareness and visibility for motorists,
Change legalities or anything?
no. No. It's just letting them know that, hey, more often than other lanes, you might be sharing this lane with a bike.
And
But-
the city gets to count it as bike infrastructure.
Yeah, well, yeah, so.